Hey everyone, another day, another handheld, with this one being the E6 Plus. As the name alludes to, the E6 Plus is a plus version of the original E6 handheld, which was released around early February of this year. The original wasn't too bad for a budget handheld, all things considered, and although I am hoping for an improved D-pad at the very least this time around, it's great to say that the E6 Plus remains in a somewhat budget territory, coming in as low as $60 during summertime promotional sales. The E6 Plus may look like the same handheld on the surface, but we've now got the much loved, or at least much used, RK3566 chip inside, which should give us access to some, but not all, of the Nintendo 64 and PSP game catalogues. Otherwise, we've got 2 gigs of RAM, a 5-inch touchscreen at a 1280 by 720 resolution, a 5000 mAh battery, Wi-Fi, which is a great addition, and an Android overlay firmware, which, interestingly and thankfully, gives us access to a full Android TV-like interface, including Play Store, which is great to see for all the tinkerers. So, straight out of the box, the E6 Plus, especially in its anime-inspired colourways, has quite a neat finish to it. It feels budget, but on the good side of budget, with surprisingly little rattle to it, and a good overall finish, but small imperfections like the screen not sitting perfectly flush within its shell, and little gaps between the front and the back, still adding to its budget roots. That said though, the shell design overall is good, with all the I/O on top and a clean design elsewhere that makes it feel very well designed, and the shiny finish it has to the shell's plastic does look very neat in person. Unfortunately though, in terms of controls, the E6 Plus hasn't made nearly as many improvements as it has elsewhere. That's not to say the controls are terrible though. The shoulder buttons aren't analog, but they have a stacked design that makes the most of the space available, and are pretty responsive no matter where you press them. The E6 Plus also surprisingly comfortable in the hands. Although naturally preferring a joystick first playstyle, it's a comfortable handheld to hold and play on, which is great. Unfortunately, the weakest area the E6 Plus's controls easily goes to the D-pad once again. It's a shame that this hasn't been replaced or significantly improved during this revision, but it again suffers from being very restrictive in terms of its movement in the center pivot, and just restrictive all round while playing a multiple input game like a fighter. The disc D-pad design is notoriously difficult to pull off, and unfortunately E6 shows why that is. The face buttons do fare better, but they do suffer from sinking a bit too far into the shell and have a slight uneven response to them, which makes pressing multiple inputs simultaneously quite uncomfortable. You can probably see the buttons change angle slightly when I press one button down, and this gives an idea to this uneven response. Overall, the controls for the E6 Plus aren't terrible, but they're far from being good, and it's a shame that there wasn't the improvements in this area which we've seen elsewhere. Speaking of improvements that they've made elsewhere though, the stock firmware option for the E6 Plus is far leaps better than its predecessor, although there are still some bugs here and there. Other than an incredibly annoying menu navigation sound, the games list occasionally appear completely blank while you're jumping in between Android and the overlay, or rebooting after any changes. They do always pop back eventually, but it is one of those things where a loading screen would have likely been a better user experience for everyone involved. Otherwise, we've got a pretty competent search, favourites, some limited settings available to us, and the ability to remap controls and save states, but unfortunately no easy way to control overlays or screen resolution. So you are pretty much stuck in widescreen with a cartoon-like overlay on top, which on some systems like the Game Boy Color look absolutely terrible, while other systems like the Super Nintendo introduces slowdown unnecessarily. You can thankfully jump into Android TV and either use the Play Store or sideload APKs onto the E6 Plus to give the option for some real tinkering to correct all of these quirks, but it is a massive shame that for now at least that's what you'll need to do if it really gets to you. So I'll cut some gameplay footage now, which was all recorded from the stock setup to give you a flavour of gameplay straight out of the box, and summarise back up at the end. So overall, the E6 Plus is a budget handheld that's easy to nitpick at, but hard to outright hate. It's a huge missed opportunity that the controls, and especially the D-pad, wasn't greatly improved during this revision, and the outright out-of-the-box experience is lacking in more than one area. But the E6 Plus, at the right price during promotional periods and with some community support, does have the potential to turn it into something special. That's it for now though, thanks so much for watching.